back to a twofer. This is a build and a review all in one. Stay tuned for that one. Welcome back to the McGolf Shop. Jim McCleary here, and this is the McGolf channel where we talk about golf club repairs, golf club reviews, and golf club fittings, all so your scores can go low. If you would, please like and subscribe and watch us on Mondays when we do a live stream. We talk about the same exact stuff. You're going to have a good time. More and more people are joining us. Be part of the new crew. Okay, so what is this? What are we talking about? We're talking about Callaway's Opus, right? If you want to go look and see what Opus means, you know, it's more towards the musical end of it, but it's called for creations. Now, Callaway has come out with, we'll call it 2 different Opus wedges with several grinds and then several coatings. So let's go through some of these while we're doing this. First is what they would call the brushed chrome, brush chrome wedge, and that's going to be their flagship or the model that most people are going to enjoy. And what it is, it's a nice wedge that has a brushed look about it. And if you wanted to get in a little closer, I've got some pictures that you should be seeing. So if we do like that, and it should look like this. And you see it's not very, they say brushed chrome, but it's very more brushed than it is chrome. And you can see some of the brush marks here. It's accented with a little bit of chrome in the middle. It's got more of a traditional wedge look upon it with a little bit of a higher toe and I think a little bit more of a curved sole from toe to heel. And they say it's more tour inspired, where the Jaws Raw, or the latest Jaws, were more flat and leading edge killed. Now, this has a much smoother look, has a much smoother look in the bag, has a more, it looks like somebody designed it with a precision in mind, meaning that you have the Opus with the name badge here, where you had all the holes for moving weight, which was kind of cool in the Jaws, but apparently they saw where they didn't need to do that too much. Now this is what they'll call the brushed chrome. What they also have is the shadow black, or the black shadow. Now the black shadow is just nothing more than a probably a PVD finish. And if you look, and you can see that it's still black on the face, right? And for those that like the black wedge, I do like the fact that it changes the black color. This is more of a matte black where it was chrome, where the other one is the darker, we'll call it satiny finish. Okay, and then there's another one. There's 2 more here. Stay with me. This is the platinum wedge, the platinum wedge. Now the platinum wedge has some what they call MEM technology, and that's some metal injection molding. And what they've done here in this one, and if you can see in the bottom, you can see that there's a little bit of an added bit here, which is the tungsten. All right, they've added a little bit of a tungsten. It has it comes in 2 different grinds only, a standard grind and the Z grind, and we'll go over those here in a minute. The back of the platinum one has kind of a milling appeal to it. It is the same shape, but when combined with this little bit of tungsten that's in the top, it gives a bit of a different performance. Now the platinum will also come with a black coated dynamic gold mid wedge shaft, where the other ones will come stock with a chrome shaft. Now finally, and the reason for the build, is the raw finish. Dan, who is a longtime watcher on the live stream, loves raw wedges. And when he gets raw wedges, he particularly likes Project X shafts. And these dynamic gold S300 115s just do not get it for him. So we're going to put in some Project X 6.5s and then a 6.5 wedge shaft into that, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So what's different for the raw versus all the rest of them? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a zero finish, or what I would call it. It's a raw finish. Now, starting off, this looks very, 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 very much like the brushed chrome. If you put them together, and I'm going to, if you put them together, this is what you would see. Okay, this is what you would see. it almost appears as if the raw, you see it's got a little bit of a, this is a little bit shinier, this is a little bit duller. But if you look at the finish and the way that they finished the grain of this metal, it almost looks identical. But if you put them up close to one another, that the raw is a little bit darker, as you can see, even with the lights bouncing off of it, the raw is a little darker where this one has that chrome finish. That will be the difference. Now, Dan likes it to rust. That's his call. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop these shafts off and we're going to put the Project X in them, and it's really cool because he has sent me the ferrules, he sent me the grip, and he's telling me everything is logo down, so there's not a lot of bouncing we got to do. This is just pop and move. All right, so the other part about this is the different grinds, okay, the different grinds. In the Platinum, there's only two. There is the S grind and the Z grind. Now, the Z grind of itself, the Z grind is interesting in the fact that it has the leading edge is much more defined than in the other wedges. It's almost like it's a scallop when it's out there. And then when you talk about it right here, that it's more curved right here, okay? A little bit more scalloped here, a little bit more curved there. Now this comes in a tin. I'm sure there are others, but the S and the Z grind will be from 54 to 60 in this guy right here. Now the other ones, the Callaway has introduced a T grind. I don't have the T grind with me, but the T grind has a truckload of the back end. This one's very close, but it has a lot of it removed back here. That's for the person that is a very shallow divot taker, okay, very shallow divot taker, because there's it's a minimal sole but lots of relief. Also for that person that very well may want to open the club, okay, open the club. They also have the S grind, which everybody has. That's everybody's standard grind. Has minimal relief in the back, just maybe a hair into the heel. A W grind. Now I really like this W grind because it's not excessive. But for those that would do a point, click, and chip that you can get through, really like that one. There's also a C grind, and that's what I'm showing you here. The C grind will be your low bounce model. You see a lot of toe relief and a little bit of heel relief, but there's a significant amount of sole that has been left around so that you can get down and you can get through it. All right, so that you have some of those. Now the stock shaft again will be the Dynamic Gold S, will be the Dynamic Gold 115 wedge. Now the mid, this is a surprisingly neat little shaft. I am a professed not a liking of a DG kind of guy. However, I've had a chance to hit them in other clubs, these new mids in the 100s and the 95s, or the 90s and 100s. Very, very nice. So I think that the wedge shaft will translate into that, and you would probably get a very, very nice feel from it. Okay, so I'm going to go start popping these guys off, and we'll show you the rest of them. However, I was able to take some wedges out onto the course, and let's talk about those first. Good morning. Here we are in Wilmington, Ohio, and I'm at the Crown Hill Golf Course, and they've graciously allowed me to test some clubs. So they let me off onto the back nine so I wouldn't be in the way. They have a very packed schedule. Today we are testing amongst other things, but today my focus is on the Opus wedge. All right, Opus wedge. I have two models. I have one with a graphite shaft. I have one with a steel shaft. One is a wide sole, and one is a standard sole, amongst all the others I got. So let's go do some testing, and then we'll talk about it in-house. All right, I found myself here right about the 100-yard mark. Now, normally a sand wedge for me, the way that I swing them, because they're not full swing clubs, are about 75 yards. So this is going to be a good measure. What I have right now is the Opus 56 12 degrees of bounce standard, and it comes with the Dynamic Gold Mid 115. That's going to be their standard in this particular realm. You're going to see that a lot. The 115 is going to be a good standard wedge shaft, right? Now, could you get others? I'm sure that you can, but this is what we have to test. So let's go hit this. All right, just short of the green, which is actually a pretty good shot. It looks like I may have gotten it into the middle. There's a change. And the ball got up nice and high. It stopped pretty quick in the middle of the wet. Feels pretty solid. Let's go try see what a chip shot looks like. We're out so early, I'm here before the guys are mowing the lawn. That's pretty cool. All right, if you see my friend behind me here, oh, he disappeared. Saw me showing up. Anyway, the wildlife's out here. So we're really close to the green. We're going to try the Opus wedge again for the pitch. Now on this one, typically would be more of a bump and roll for me, but we're testing wedges, so let's go do this. Keep going, keep going. All right, not a bad little punch shot. It got up in the air just like we wanted it to do, and I was in a pretty good position to do it though. Still very solid. I kind of like this club. It's getting through the turf for a standard grind, right? For those of you that want to flop it open, you might consider something different. But this has turned out to be pretty good. Let me go finish that off. All right, we're here on hole number 12. It was a short par 4, as you guys just saw, and I hit a hybrid and put myself in that 75, 80 yard range. I'm in the second cut, which is a little thicker, so that'll just give me the idea of using this wide sole so you don't get stuck, right? The idea of it is to glide through the turf. Now, this grind, in my opinion, looks a little different than the wide soles in the past, meaning that, yes, the sole is wider than some of the other current offerings, but I don't believe it to be as wide as previous models. Now you'll see here when you look at it, it has a bit of a curve. In past they've been straight, so we have a bit of a curve, so it allows for a better turf interaction, so to speak. And in this particular instance, we're using the recoil wedge shaft. It's a 65 gram shaft. We're going to see. I've not hit a recoil wedge shaft before. I've done plenty of recoils. I was a recoil tour spec person for a long time, but we've never really gotten to the wedge shafts. 65 grams at first blush appears to be very light, and it is. It's a light shaft. However, when you get this in your hand, it does provide a lot of head weight. So don't think it's going to be this thing you're going to toss around and everything. It does feel like you can control it. And we have a 360 Tour Velvet on it. So let's see if we can get through the turf on this one. Go. Okay, I got through it all right. That was I gave up on a little bit because the hole plays notoriously short, and I'm right there on the edge. I do like that. We're going to give us another shot. I got it buried a little deeper in there now. We're going to see if it'll come up out of this thing. Bit of a pull, but it does. All right, so you get to see, you know, it collects the grass. That's the whole idea of grooves. But it doesn't allow you to get caught up as much as say a thinner sole, or one that doesn't have a whole lot of, you know, trailing edge on it, so that you can get through it. So not all in all, it was a pretty good shot. And I let off on the club. I think I've already really given it its go. It had probably gone. So let's give that a +1. All right, we look to be about, I'm going to say we're about 15 foot off the green with a short-sided pin. And we're going to try this wide sole again. Typically, I would really be digging that standard grind so I can get through it, because as the turf gets thinner, wide soles, unless if you're a scooper, not good, or what they call it, a sweeper. However, we're going to try and get through this and see what happens. Go. Well, I'm digging that. That got through. It bounced right off the turf just like a wide sole is supposed to. I didn't skip it across and hit that skull shot, thank goodness. And I'm in a one putt situation, so let me go finish that off. As you guys can see, so I'm under a tree, and this is where my second shot landed. I'm on a par 5, and I'm about 50-ish yards out. And so we're going to go back to the 12-degree bounce, 56-degree Opus wedge with the Dynamic Gold 115 mid on it, and with the 360 Tour Velvet. Now this one's going to be, I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a knockdown shot, but I'm in enough turf where I'm not going to get hung up, I don't think. And we're just going to try and throw it on the green and see if we can get in for par. Now 75 is typically my shot with a half swing, and I'm thinking I'm about 60. So we're going to have to take a little bit off of this guy, probably like that, and see what happens. Boy, if I could repeat that swing, I'd be happy. Bit of a pull, but it's going up there. On the green. Let's go see what happened to that one. Actually, so this is a pretty solid wedge. I'm not getting that harsh feedback that even when you miss. This is a very, very solid club. It gives you that feeling that you're always hitting it towards the middle. Now that one was a bit of a pull, but on the green, if you're on the green, you got to take it, right? But I'm really liking how this is getting through the turf. The beveled lead, or the beveled trailing edge with a little bit of the hosel removal and the killed leading edge is really working out well. All right, this is what happens when you don't flush that 7-iron and make it go straight. The second one I did hit, and it bounced here and it went screaming off the back. So coming in a little higher lofted would be the way to go. However, it's another time to test my S-grind Opus. I found it tough to grass, and the problem here is you want to scoop underneath of it, and that's the farthest thing from the truth that you want to do. Truly, I'd rather have a 60 here, but we got a 56, so let's see what we can do with it. All right, let's see it go through. Get up there. Well, I got up there, didn't roll as much as I wanted to, but we're putting. All right, we're on hole 18, the last test of the wedge, and we might contend with some road traffic because we're about 50 yards from the road. Anyway, thank you to Crown Hill for allowing us to test these wedges on their course and do this videoing. They let me get off on the back nine, so it was really to stay out of the way of the golfers actually doing golfing with their buddies. So I found myself right behind me here. I'm kind of in a ditch in some thicker grass. It's a downhill sloping kind of green, so I got to get it up in the air, and I've got to land it kind of soft, and we're going to try the W grind again and just see what happens with this. All right, I'm in a bit of a hole here, so maybe I can use that to my advantage. So we're going to try and pop it up over here and let it run down. I did not use my inner Peter Finch to this. Okay, so a little bit of a chip here. Let's see if we can make this get a little closer. There we go. Slow now, slow now. All right, we're going to finish this one off. So, the Opus wedge. The Opus wedge, I like the design. I like the big teardrop face. I like the grooves that seem to be grabbing it. The feel is massively solid. Solid as a rock. Well, not solid as a rock. It's massively solid because it feels really, really good. I was really worried about the lightweight wedge shaft, but no more. And so I wouldn't have any problem recommending this particular setup. Now there is a T-grind out there, and the T-grind, which we'll talk about later, is has a little bit extra in it. It has a different shaft, different grip. The grind on the sole is a little bit different. Plus, it has a little bit of tungsten for those of you guys that really airmail this stuff. And we'll have to check that one out here in a moment. So, if you're looking for a wedge, definitely check these out. They bite the ball. They're really traditional in their shape, and they feel great. And if you need anything in that way, you know, if maybe these shafts just aren't for you, go get custom fit, and that way you can get a shaft that's all about what you need. Now that you see how they perform, now we're going to start taking apart. The one thing I forgot to mention was the raw finish is a custom order right now. So that's how Dan got them, and apparently the Project X is not part of that execution, so that's what we're going to do to take care of this. Now, as you guys have seen me remove heads before, but this about 30 seconds in three different quadrants in order to get the glue hot, and what I'm going to try and do is not mess with the ferrule because of what we're going to talk about later. Now the cool part about this one, and the reason why you don't see the ferrule moving around or getting hot right now, is because a wedge is a ginormous heat sink, and it will travel, the hosel is much thicker, much more robust than say a regular iron. So it'll take this heat just as easily as you want to look at it. Now, another couple of things that you could use to define whether or not this was a raw wedge or not is in the what they would be called the satin area right up in here, and they're massively different. All you got to do now, the best way this works is when you got a nice grip on it, you can get a big torque on it and you're good to go. All right, most importantly is clean it up. I like using the brush, and I like going in both directions because the brush will tend to mat down, and when you go in the other direction it brings the bristles up, and what it does, it tends to clean it out a little bit better. All right, this one has a glue booger right there on the top. There we go. All right, so I was talking to you earlier, we got to kind of stay away from the hosel, but in this area where the satin area is significantly duller, right? It's significantly duller, and it does give you the look that it is raw metal right there. Where on the other one, it's a little cleaned, a little maybe even more painted, more polished up. And what we're doing with that. Alrighty, so we got them taken apart. It's using the butane torch. It only took about a minute's worth of heat applying. You can twist it that way. If you don't have the grip on it, then you want to use a shaft puller in order to make that happen. That makes it cleaner. Particularly if you're using graphite shafts, you certainly want to use a puller. That allows you to keep the integrity of the shaft in case you want to reuse it again. All right, so let's go put in some of these shafts. All right, we've done work for Dan before, and so he knows how to list things out, but I always get letters. And so we got a 5210, a 5612, and a 68, okay? And we're going to put the Project X 6.5, and there's two taper tip, what they would call like the pitching wedge shaft, and then a 6.5 wedge shaft. So for those of you not in the know, Project X makes a wedge shaft, and it's actually pretty good. They have a 5.0, they have a 5.5, a 6.0, and a 6.5. And they're different weights and they work differently, so it's just not getting something heavier or stiffer. You really should check them out. All right, and then he wants the shafts, and then he wants tour velvets. All right, tour velvets. And this guy's a traditionalist. He wants black. He doesn't want anything in his way. And everything is going to be logo down. Okay, logo down. Now, and he says no wax because he knows I normally wax stuff when I get done. So we like all that. So what we're going to do is he wants the wedge shaft in the 60. So you say, Jim, would I have to trim this? And the answer is no, because they're all wedge shafts, but one is more pitching wedge versus wedge shaft. And this is a 52, and I really wouldn't want to mess with it anyway. Not only that, but these are taper tip shafts. So now the next thing we got to find out is an Opus wedge a taper tip, or is it a 370? It is a new model, so let's find out. So we got 355. It's in there and it moves around pretty good. Let's check 370. Oh, it went in with a 370 pretty damn good. So we find out it's a 370 shaft. So much for everything being taper tipped. So that means now I've got to go up here and I got to get some brass shims in order to make that happen. So let's get those. And it so happens I have 3 left. 1, 2, and 3. Got to get Mrs. McGolf to order some more. Okay, so we got those. He's also sent us the stock replacement. It comes from Golf Works, and what you'll notice here is that there's a little bit of a mold piece on there. So the other thing we got to look at is, you know, they haven't really had a chance to say if this ferrule is going to fit this particular head. But what I'm looking at is there is a lot of shoulder, just like the traditional raw, the Jaws raws, and ooh, there it is. And that was a tight fit. So we're going to have to watch that when we go to assemble. All right, let's see if it's not the same on all the others. Yeah, so it's a good fit around the outside. It's not too small, not too big, but to get it into the shoulder, that's gonna take a little bit of work. You have to do a little bit more cleaning, I think. Alrighty, so we have all those. I've prepped the tips, and now we just got to glue them and make sure they all go together. So let me mix some glue before we get started. Okay, I've got my glue mixed up. I got my shims in place. I got to get my, and we can't fiddle fart around too much because the glue is already starting to, the minute you start mixing the glue or the epoxy, it starts into its curing process, so you have a limited amount of time. So we got to make sure we got a 52 here, we got a 56, and we got the 60. So we'll work backwards. I got the Project X wedge, which is what he wanted on there. A little bit of glue around there. We're going to shove the ferrule on. And what I glue that for is, you ever had that ferrule creep and you ever want to not have that ferrule creep? That's how you do it. All right, we're going to push this guy on. There we go. Down there a little bit. Now, this is where it gets kind of hairy because we're using a shim, and you want to put a little bit of glue underneath of it so that it can come in contact with the shim, and a little bit of glue on the outside so it can come in contact with the hosel on the outside of it. And when you go to do this, you really want to be very careful. You can't spin it around like you do the other one because the fingers will start getting twisted up, and man, oh man, will that be not good. So what I like to do is I will make it, I'll turn it in quarter increments just to make sure that it gets on there. And then he wants it down, so we will match the logo into the down, and then I will tamp it down. There we go. Now I got to move my ferrule up, so give me a minute. So remember when I told you it was going to be really tough to put on? Well, it was. And the way you do it is I use my vise with the speed clamp, and what I will do is I will put the speed clamp in it like this, and then I will push the ferrule down here and push it back onto the club, and then let the mechanical forces work for you instead of you working for them. Last little tap. There we go. Piece of tape. Get it on here and put it on the rack with the rest of my stuff. Okay, so we got her pushed up there, and it was only out maybe a 32nd of an inch, but you know, if you're going to do work like this, precision matters. And it's the look, right? The ferrule is really a judgment of a club maker's capabilities or attention to detail. We got that one setting up there pretty good. We went from the wedge shaft to the non-wedge shaft for the wedge. So if you're colorblind, this might not be a thing, but if you see there's a whole ring around there, you know you've pushed it on pretty good when you get the ring of glue. And you know when you wipe it off, it just looks like one piece. It goes from ferrule to hosel. You know you're doing pretty good. Alrighty. Let's do that. Put this guy up in here to dry, and we'll be done here in just a little bit. Okay, so that's basically switching the shafts. Now we just got to cut them to length, and life is good. And he's given me specific lengths that he wants. When we do the epoxy, we put a little bit of centering bead in there, and I snuck a little bit of tungsten because he likes it a little bit heavier. So that's basically taking a shaft out and putting a shaft in. The rest of the club build, if you guys want to know more about club building, go check out my library. I've done basically one of everything in order to do this. If you got questions, send them to me and I can make them into a video. Get a hold of it, and let's see your scores go low.